This is not your typical trucking business. You can't put us in the transportation bucket by itself. It makes no sense. There's just way too much specialty to this.
You guys work with some of the biggest names in the world, Drink, Pink, the Jonas Brothers, you name them, you guys probably have worked with them, right?
But it wasn't overnight. When you know a decision needs to be made, you got to make it sooner than later.
Rich, good to have you on the pod.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it. Happy to be here. Rich,
explain yourself to the audience today. You are the CEO of Dreamliner. Who is Rich Thomson?
Who is Rich Thomson? A guy trying to figure it out. I'm 47 and kind of, I will say I figured out who I want to be when I grow up. But, just try to work hard and, build and do what you can.
Tell us a little about Dreamliner. You started this in the most toughest times of America, COVID 2020. I think that's where a lot of people had doubt in their business and their careers on building a new venture. And you went and doubled down on a venture that really scaled drastically in your favor because of COVID. Walk us through that journey.
Sure. I had just started my own company in 2019, Caprice Capital, and learned about this industry as an opportunity to invest. Spent a good amount of time on the industry and business, and kind of fall in love with the business. It's a cool business. But it's got a lot of, nice assets to it. Just a lot of good investment parameters that were kind of interesting about it. Unfortunately, I did not invest, back in 19 when I looked at the original deal. But then during COVID, when I got a phone call saying, hey, I've got some coaches and I personally guaranteed these coaches, can you help me? I said, sure. I guess I can buy the boat. I can buy the coaches. There was no business to finance. But I knew enough about the business from a year plus prior that I believed, these would be good assets to own. And, this would be a great little kind of side hustle, own some coaches and we'll lease them out and see where we go from there. And, try to build myself in enough runway to get to where the world would restart. I clearly believe the world would restart, hopefully sooner than later. But yeah, it was definitely a bet and a gamble, but I was focused on building my other business. And this was something that I thought would be a, kind of a great little side investment for me. So I kind of took that leap and, that was the start of it. And it's kind of snowballed obviously since then pretty dramatically.
So let's walk through that a little bit. You were working as a managing director or partner at, is it Caprice Capital? Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
And then this opportunity came about. And you had a friend potentially, or acquaintance who said, I bought a bunch of coaches. I PG'd the loan. PG means personally guaranteed the loan. And then you saw a very unique aspect of this business that you can go support. What made you leave Caprice and then go all in on something like this?
So I actually didn't leave Caprice. Caprice was still 100% my focus, and I was focused on building that business. And so the thought was there was not a lot to do during COVID at this time, but it's not easy to get. I think getting into this industry is not the easiest thing in the world because they only make so many Prevost shells. There's only so many builders that can build the buses. There's only so many entertainer buses in the industry, in the market, that it was a unique situation to be able to kind of buy 12 of them at not a crazy discounted value, but at a good value. And I felt like I could hold on to those and lease them out. Like a majority of the other clients out there or companies in this industry, I'd be an entrepreneur that owned some buses and I hired someone to go lease those buses. And so that was the plan. And I didn't really, outside of kind of, controlling the finances and overseeing the finances to make sure that, I did things that we thought were, the right things to do. I let the guy that I hired to lease the buses.
And talking about that delegation, so when you came into the business, there was only 4 buses, and then I know you did an acquisition, I believe, in 2022 with 12 more buses. Is that correct?
No. So when I first bought the buses, I bought 12 of them. So 12 was the original purchase in October of 20. So that's the business started in October of 20 with 12 buses.
And then who was this gentleman that was leasing all the buses that you had faith in to run the operations?
Jeremy Mall.
And then walk us through the relationship with Jeremy and how Jeremy was able to kind of lease these buses and scale this business alongside your guidance. And what role do you play today in scaling this venture?
Yeah. So Jeremy had been in the industry for, 10 plus years, and worked at a couple different bus companies, and had a lot of relationships with a lot of tour managers, and was a hustler. He worked worked really hard, and was, very, very good at leasing and very good at getting people to use our buses. And he was very, very focused on kind of, making sure it was a high-end product and a high-end service, which is where we were very aligned. They're very nice, high-end new entertainer coaches. Not a lot of people. His fleet is consists of 12 brand new, newer coaches. And so he went out and leveraged all his relationships and found every tour he could, and did a great job leasing the coaches.
And walk us through how you go lease coaches like this. You guys work with some of the biggest names in the world, Drake, Pink, the Jonas Brothers, you name them. You guys probably have worked with them, right? And getting to those large celebrity names is no easy task. How does someone in the industry go and penetrate that market?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, Jeremy had the relationships from his years of experience, but primarily, we're working with the tour managers, some of the production managers, business managers, occasionally artist managers, but all these big names, whether it's a individual artist or their band or dancers or otherwise, all of them have multiple layers of management to them. But the tour managers are typically the ones that are working with logistics and kind of reaching out to us as a bus transportation company and choosing the buses. So Jeremy had that Rolodex originally to reach out to the names he knew and had been working with in the past. And then, the other side of it is, when you have 12 of the, brand new buses out there, people are going to listen to you more, and people are going to know you've got a nice brand new fleet of buses. A lot of other folks that have buses, they're dated. People buy them. They're not buying them every year, reinvesting every year. So 12 new buses is pretty helpful.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, taking 12 buses and leasing them out nonstop. I mean, there's so much demand now, especially when you guys first started the business. That's where music was all-time dead. And then you look at it where it is today, music is at an all-time high. I think you can actually go finance your StubHub tickets these days if you want to go to concerts, because there's so much demand to go do so. And things are so expensive, right? I'd be curious, how does adding logistics change the value prop, whether you're working with a Taylor Swift or Metallica or Drake? What changes do you have to go do as a business to I guess, cater to individuals like that?
Yeah, listen, I think there's a big difference in my mind from the largest tours out there and the largest, most well-known kind of tour managers versus kind of, some of the newer tour managers. So there's a business savvy sophistication with some of the bigger guys that want to know a lot more specifics. A leasing person that can walk and talk you through kind of every piece of the routing and what you need each time, how many from the basics of how many miles it is to how many hours it's going to take to, do you want to stop? Do you need to stop? Do you need to have a co-driver during that portion? The thoughtfulness and the spending time on the phone and walking and talking through with the tour manager, production managers on that routing and what's needed and what the requirements are. Including the setup and layout of the buses and or the drivers. There's a lot more to it, I think, in the bigger tours that have been around a long time. They want to know they know some of the drivers, so the drivers are key in everything we do. They want certain setups in the buses. They want certain things specifically within the buses. They want to stop and do certain things. They need to be prepared sometimes when an artist is going to go do what they're going to do and they can't control that from time to time. They try to let you know when there are going to be changes or there might be changes. So we need to be flexible in these certain areas or times. When there's off days, or is there time for us to be able to kind of get our coaches where they need to be to make sure we keep them maintained while they're on the road for 3, 4, 6 months at a time. So, I think there's a lot of, the experience is huge in this industry. The people that have been doing it a long time that know how, they know the game, they've been in the game. I mean, a lot of my employees today have been in the industry for 20, 30 years, right? They were a driver once, they were a mechanic once, they were a tour manager once, but, they've been in the industry forever. So they really understand the logistics and how and what the needs are of our clients.
Rich, this industry has taken off over the last, I would say, 10 years, logistics and transportation. Private equities like to gobble this whole industry up right now as well. Do you look at Dreamliner as a transportation company or a broader live entertainment infrastructure platform now? Because you're obviously having the back end of supply chain of moving all these buses around, but you're at the same token too, the other half of the business is catering towards the biggest stars in the world. And how do you overcome that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think a lot of my prior world with Caprice, and working with investors, bankers and stuff, it's always an interesting conversation on, are you a transportation logistics company? Are you a live entertainment touring business? What are you? You can't put us in the transportation bucket by itself. It makes no sense. There's just way too much specialty to this. When I bought Show Motion and Show Pro as an example, people were like, oh, that's a trucking business. Why would you buy a trucking business? Well, again, this is not your typical trucking business. This is not someone hauling freight to and from and some guys picking up some people with their wife in the truck. Like these are guys that are experts at what they do. It's not easy for these guys, whether the guys are, our flatbed business is, taking a stage, to and from Metallica, taking two systems at two different stadiums at the same time, getting them ready, or it's a box truck that's, following around the production equipment. These guys, they're specialists. And so this is a very unique business that I would put the weight much more on a live entertainment touring infrastructure than I would on just transportation logistics, because it is transportation, it is logistics, but it's much more specialized than that. And you can't just go grab a truck driver off the street or a bus driver off the street to do what our guys do. It's not like that. Not to mention, you can't go just buy our bus off the street. No, you can't go get the buses we have here. They're custom built from the shell we get all the way through 12 plus weeks of kind of custom building that doesn't exist out there.
Rich, what, I'd be curious about, what keeps you up at night in a business like this? I'm sure that's a loaded question, right? Because you're dealing with the biggest stars in the world, but you're also dealing with maintenance CapEx on these large buses that can cost hundreds of thousands, yet maybe millions of dollars to go fix. And for you sitting in the CEO hat, you're probably trying to solve the biggest problems in the company. What is that today?
Well, I probably always go to labor. People. I think people's the biggest thing. The risk long term. Listen, there's always the liability, the risk that we've got 215 buses out there on the road traveling around, taking people. Most of our buses traveling at night from 1 a.m. to 8 a.m. And so there's a liability risk side, but labor is just tough. Finding good people, trades, our build shop, we've got 20 people, in our build shop that are custom building coaches right here in our office here. Finding good tradesmen, guys that care, that want to build something special and work with their hands. The grease shop, our mechanics there, the paint and body shop, the interior maintenance shop, all those roles are important roles to kind of keep these buses on the road. And then I mentioned the drivers, but the driver is another big part too. There's a lot of drivers in this industry are aging out. They've been doing it a long time. They're excellent. They're very good drivers, but finding a younger generation and finding people to kind of start becoming and learning how to drive these buses, it's a unique animal. You got to be able to kind of put your head down and drive and not worry about who's coming in and out of your bus, who you're working for, who's on the bus, whether it could be the dancers, it could be the crew, it could be the audio guys, it could be the artist. But keep your head down, just drive, do what you're told, make sure these guys have, the bus is clean, you're professional, and you just stay out of their way and be a driver. Not let yourself get in the middle of the mix, try to be their best friend and do some of the things that you see other folks do.
Yeah, Rich, but that's a hard task to go live up to when you have, Taylor Swift and her crew in the back, right? Doing all sorts of things. You're curious to see what's going on in the rearview mirror. What about labor and building this business? I'm sure that's one of the toughest things in the trades these days. They talk about the silver tsunami that's happening today, where a lot of these baby boomers are retiring. We call these people like the more robust workers who don't have all these distractions today that the younger generation does. So for finding new labor today, how do you guys implement, a proper SOP protocol to make sure you can reduce churn as much as possible to have really good drivers for the future to sustain a business like Dreamliner?
Obviously culture is huge, right? You try to create a place where people like to be and people like to work with the other people. And finding, to me, the biggest thing is finding the younger generation that wants to learn. That's like anxious and eager to learn from the guys that have been here, for a lot of years, right? And on the other end of it, you got the guy that's, about ready to retire, been doing this 35 years. You got to kind of work with him and say, hey, I need you to help coach. I know you build great, but I need you to help coach these guys. So when you do want to retire in a year or two, they understand and they can kind of know where the good and bad things to do, what are the right and wrong things to do, while you're building. And on the driver's side, right? Like you're right. It's easier said than done to like not be wooed or on who's on the bus. But that's why it's so important to have the right drivers and with the right mentalities. And sometimes it's good to have a driver on there that he doesn't even like or care about the show, right? whether it's Taylor Swift or whoever it is, maybe like, I don't care. Like, I'm here to drive and make a living for my family. So, I think that's, to me, it's hard to find the right people. But when you find them, just I think continuing to give people the right, healthcare benefits is a big thing for drivers and for people nowadays. Especially a lot of the folks we have here, this is all they've known for their whole career, right? They've been in this industry, or they've been around a long time. So treating them well, whether it's little perks here and there of going to do something, whether it's doing a little events at the house or at the office here, taking them to games or events, things like that. I think the little things like that help create a culture of good people.
You mentioned you did a couple of different acquisitions. I believe it's the Henfel Brothers, Show Pro, and Show Motion. Is that correct?
Yep.
So talk to us about the rationale of build versus buy when building a business like this. So when you came in, you bought 12 coach buses. Now you've done 3 different acquisitions. You're up to 215 buses now. If as an entrepreneur who wants to go scale their business a lot faster, there's a build and buy model that can happen today. With your background and capital markets, private equity, you understand this space pretty well. How do you go determine whether to continue to build organically or inorganically to go buy?
Well, I guess there's probably a lot of things to think about, but my focus from day one has been, first I wasn't planning on building or growing anywhere near as much and fast as we have, but I think you always try to focus on organic build. That's going to be the most valuable, is the organic build. And so, I've focused on that opportunistically. When we bought Diamond Coach, which was our first acquisition in 22, I knew the founder owner. I'd been talking to her for a while, leveraging her as kind of an advisor to coach me on things and tell me about things as I was making decisions. And we got to a point by there where she said, she'd been doing it 20 years. She said, okay, fine, why don't you just buy me? And it made a ton of sense. She had a phenomenal reputation. She was known in the industry individually, and her company had a great reputation. And so, and that was what also that one, Diamond specifically, is what shifted and pivoted us from being in California to Nashville, which is where all the buses are out of, all the artists are coming in and out of, especially the country market is all in and out of Nashville. So it was kind of the right time to be here to take over move our headquarters, take over a facility here in Nashville. And that took us from kind of, 25 coaches to probably 60, 65 coaches. And that was the kind of the game changer for me, was all of a sudden you go from kind of building some coaches and having a little investment and a little leasing company. Oh, okay, we're going to be a little more than that. At 60 coaches, you start becoming a little bigger company, a little more to us. And the other opportunities, honestly, everything's come very organically. Like, I wasn't out hunting or searching for Diamond or for Hemphill or Show Motion or Show Pro for that matter. All these kind of came organically through conversations, someone reaching out or someone making an introduction. But Diamond was the people reputation, the founder people reputation. Hemphill was the same exact thing on a much bigger scale. But Joey and Trent's business, they were known as good people. They took care of their clients. Clients didn't leave. Drivers didn't leave. Employees didn't leave. They had a lot of respect in the industry. And so their brand, their name was key, was important. Their employees were. And so to me, the decision's easy on that front, right? If you have the opportunity to buy a market leader like Hemphill that has the reputation, and you're working with, the sellers are, guys of, good character, good integrity. Those are things that I look for that are really important. I've dealt with the other side of people that are not good people, and dealing with good people that you believe in and you can trust is probably one of the most important things you can do in buying a company.
Yeah, talk to us a little about those acquisitions and integration that goes into Dreamliner, and how someone raises the capital to go do so if need be, and then how do you put them all together under one unified company?
Sure. Well, I mean, our company was so small. Pre-Diamond, I'd say we were so small, it was easy. I don't say we became Diamond Coach, but we basically took our product service focus and newer coaches and blended it with theirs and kind of just, built a team up from there. But I was also not sitting at the helm then. And so I wouldn't say that we kind of built really a huge culture or built, a lot of the infrastructure we needed. We were still kind of growing, figuring it out. So, we weren't ready for that, real experienced CFO, or COO, things like that. So we were still just kind of a bigger leasing company at the time. It wasn't until we bought Hemphill, that we really, thinking about the business and looking at ourselves as much more than just a high-end leasing company. We became a real business with our own build shop, and our own paint and body shop, our own interior maintenance shop, our own wash bays, our own grease shops, multiple shops. And so now, as we started to build that, that to me, that's how we built the culture, right? You have the existing kind of somewhat of a framework there, and then you start pulling it together and telling everyone, listen, we're not the former Diamond team, we're not the former Hemp Hill team, we're not Dreamliner. Like, you're not these companies. You just got to keep preaching to everybody, like, guys, we're one company, we're one fleet, we're one business, and we're all going out to do the same thing with all of our clients, right? Provide a very high-end product and provide the top-notch service to all of our clients, whether we're taking them in a bus, whether they're pulling their equipment, or their stage. Like, we're doing all that for them. And the artist and the management, I think, of our clients, all of us, we have one neck to choke. We know if there's an issue, we know that we can call Dreamliner. They will fix it, right? Something happens with the bus, it breaks down, whether it's new or old. We know they're going to get it fixed ASAP, or they're going to get us a new bus, or they're going to get us the show however they have to. And to me, that's what the industry needs. And there's not really anyone else out there doing what we're doing on that front, I don't think, right? No one else has a facility in California, a facility in Denver, 6 rescue countries across the country. Like, that's the stuff start building, and the team starts believing in that, I think, a lot, to say, oh, wow, this is cool. We actually are doing something pretty special here.
Where's your experience come from to go build a culture like this? Because you seem like you have it, figured out on the back of your hand now, of acquiring a few different companies, putting it all in Dreamliner, and say, this is one big company now. You came from a finance background previously, and now you're diving deep as a CEO of this business. Tell us a little about your past, and then how that's transitioned into operating this business and building I could call it a streamlined logistics operation.
Yeah, well, it's not, my experience is definitely not doing what I'm doing today. But, for most of my career, since college, I worked at banks and finance companies, and then started Caprice. But that whole time, I got to meet with a ton of, founder, family, entrepreneur-owned companies. Sit down with management teams, sit down with boards, have meetings. And while we were investing or lending to these companies, you get to hear a lot about the goods, the bads. You learn kind of what people did right, what they did wrong. And I was never, an advisor to these people. But when you see enough, you get enough reps of meeting people and seeing what's successful, what works and what doesn't work, you learn a little bit of at least some key basics of things you need building that infrastructure. At Caprice, we used to, should say used to, we still do, but, you meet with a company and a founder, love the company, love the growth, and you have to end up telling them, saying, hey, I know things are great here, and I know you don't want to spend money on a new employee. I'm like, but you need a CFO. Aunt Barb can't be your CFO forever, right? You're now doing 50 million revenue, 100 million revenue, whatever it is. You need to start thinking about bringing in key people that you can trust and rely on, and can help you continue to grow and scale. And so I was always, good at preaching that. I didn't do that quickly enough here. I probably could have brought people in earlier. Bringing in Tara, our CFO, or John, our COO, I could have brought them in earlier, but, I was like every other entrepreneur, like, you keep growing and growing. And you're like, can I afford that? Can I afford that? And so, to your question on how did I learn, I think a lot of reps, meeting with a lot of entrepreneurs, founders, CEOs, CFOs, over the last 25 years, help give me the confidence of what I think needs to be done in building the business and building a culture. And the other big part of my experience, I'd say, is kind of growing up in a family of 5 kids, and being an athlete growing up. My parents, taught me all the things that I still believe in to this day, from God to family and those type of focuses. And so learning to be a good person, learning to be friendly, learning to work with people, all those things help you create a good culture. And
it's as simple as that, right? I mean, you were a D1 division athlete. You played tennis, I believe, at St. Mary's University. It teaches you a lot of adversity. I played soccer at University of South Carolina. You're at the team sport regardless. It's always a mentality is like the name on the front of the jersey matters more than the name on the back of the jersey. My coaches used to always say that. And ingraining that mentality into people today who weren't athletes sometimes catches them off guard. What from your athletic career has transitioned the most into you becoming a CEO of this large enterprise?
I think discipline is huge. And I think leading by example, being here. it's probably, I think it's one of my better points, but it's also one of my downfalls is trying to take ownership of things and be an example of, I was just a tease about being first in the office and last out. That's hard to do in this business because it's 24/7. But people in the office coming in after I do or leaving before I do, like you feel like that's the example you want to lead with. Sometimes that's a downfall because I should probably go out and be doing more meetings and doing more strategic things, but I'm here in the office trying to lead by example and trying to be around for my team. I also want to be here when clients come by, so I can say hi, shake their hand, let them know that that the owner and the CEO is here. I'm not just some guy in the background off vacationing. I'm here. I'm working. I'm involved in this business day to day. I put my life, my financial wherewithal, my whole world, all on the line here to build this business, and I'm not going to let it fail.
Can you tell us a little bit, maybe a story or two that is an inflection point in the business that changed the entire dynamic of what Dreamliner is doing today, whether that's from a logistics issue or whether it's from working with a celebrity? Anything you're willing to share would be gratefully appreciated to the audience.
I mean, the toughest one I could tell you about was, a little over a year ago when I had to turn over the entire management team. Wow. Not planned, not something I wanted to do or plan to do, but it was something that needed to be done to kind of take the business where we needed it to go. And so when you take, kind of employee number one and some of the other key management teams and you turn them all over in a short period of time, your whole world gets flipped upside down. And the employees are all, confused and what's going on and what happened. And, last 12 months ish were probably by far the biggest thing that we had to fix and figure out from my perspective, because you had to see who was here, like who was here to be a part of Dreamliner and be part of my team and who wasn't. And there was people that were going to leave and go other places. Some people had reasons for it. Some people just didn't because they didn't want to deal with change, or they thought there were issues or, trust or concerns. So, I think that's what's really built the business and team we have today, more today than ever in the history of Dreamliner, is that I think we now have a lot of people that are fully bought in to what we're building here, and we're the special business that we're building, from number of coaches we're managing to trucks that we're managing. No one's ever done that in this industry before. And I think the team has seen enough of me, been around me enough, and I've committed to people and I've lived up to my commitments. My word's all I got. And so whether it's with my employees or my clients, they've got to trust me and believe that if I tell them we're going to do it, we're going to do it. And if something happens, we're going to take care of it. So, to me, that was by far the biggest, inflection we've had to deal with. And I feel, I feel better today than I ever have about the business. I mean, we have a lot of great people around me. I have more people day to day that I can start trusting to do things. There's not, did that get done, or did someone take care of that, or trusting that someone else is just handling it. Like, I know, we built some process and procedures. We continue to, and we will continue to as we continue to grow. But, the industry needs this. The employees, I think, really love being a part of it. And it's fun being somewhere that you can grow and you can all work together as a team. And it's not we're not some big, large, corporation, right? You still have the key management here day to day, all sitting around talking, walking the floor with people. So I personally believe that getting over the last 12 months was by far the biggest thing I've ever had to deal with in my career.
Yeah, let's underscore that a little bit. That's not easy because, we sometimes hear we got to get rid of that one employee that's been around for 20 plus years. His name is Johnny, and he's a great guy, but he's just not living up to par of where the business is at today. But taking out your entire management team, that can't just come, on a random thought, and then all of a sudden you want to go do that. Was there anyone who kind of pushed you, whether it's a CEO coach, an advisor, who said, "Hey, look, you have to go bring the right people on the bus and then drive the bus the right way, or this will fail"? And you obviously changed a management team, which is probably several different individuals that are very key components of the company all at once. Throughout this entire podcast and talking to hundreds of different entrepreneurs, I've yet to hear anyone go do that in one single instance. So how did that just come about for you to go do that all in one shot?
In all honesty, I probably should have done it 12 months earlier. It took a long time to figure it out. And I did everything I could to try to make it work. Listen, I think maybe as a lot of founders, sometimes you know a decision needs to be made because you have a gut, you have an instinct that you need to make a decision, do something, but you don't want to. Even if you know it's not going to work, if you keep trying, you kind of just keep trying, hoping the person will change or what they're doing will change. And the longer you let that go on, I think the more pain you feel. But I also, I think again, part of it as I grew up, and this is like my parents, I think, you don't want to let somebody go. You don't want to impact them. You don't want to impact their families. You don't want them to go through that struggle. Even if you know it's not best for you necessarily. So you try harder and you take longer, and it probably costs you more money and takes more out of you personally. But it wasn't overnight. And the three individuals were, the CEO first, and then we kind of gave a little bit of time after the CEO left to see how kind of number 2 and 3, how those things went. And you found out very quickly that they were kind of all on that same page, and those were not people and roles that were going to work here for us long term. So it wasn't an easy thing. And I'd say advisor wise, man, I had every input from everyone around here. I had guys today that are still here that I trust and I believe, and they said, "I told you so." And then I have guys around here that said, "I can't believe that worked out. I didn't think you should have done that." I have to make that decision. I think I've learned a lot, honestly, just in the last couple of years since I moved here to Nashville and took the reins. I guess I'd say at the end of the day, when a decision needs to be made, you got to make it sooner than later. The longer you wait, the more it impacts your business, the more it costs you, and the harder it's going to be to get you where you want to be.
Rich, so you obviously know what a bad CEO looks like and a good CEO looks like now, right? How would you bifurcate the two? What a good CEO looks like versus a bad CEO?
Well, I think a CEO needs to put the business, and I love your comment there about the brand on the front and the back, because I think if you put the business first instead of the individual first is a big thing. You need to know that you're there to make the business successful, not yourself, your brand, who you are, or what, how much money you get or how much money you make. So I think that person needs to be, I say good person a lot, but it needs to be an adult that looks at things and says, I'm here, I'm in charge of this business, and I want to grow the business and I want to grow the people around it. Instead of this is what I want, do it my way or the highway. Right. So I think the team player aspect cannot be understated, from my point of view. This business won't succeed if we have 5 good people and a bunch of people that don't want to work or don't like who they work with. Right. People have to like who they work for, or they have to like what they're doing, and some combination of both, ideally. But I think, I'd say that knowing that you're here and you have a job to do, and your job is to grow a company and build a company, and that includes the people around it, is important.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And I just recently saw that Dreamliner is now available to the general public. So change the business model a little bit. So before it's just for the highest celebrities out there. Now, if people want to go take day trips across the country, they can go use Dreamliner to get an awesome coach luxury bus and take that across America. Why make that change? What was the business model need for doing that?
So I don't think it's a need. I just think again, no one's had the size of fleet we have. We've got a big fleet, right? And now with the facilities we have across the country, hell, I moved to Nashville a little over 2 years ago. And I always knew the geography was cool, but how many places we can get in 4 or 5 hours in a car or on a bus. I think a lot of people don't know it's out there, it's available. I take a guy's trip at least once a year to go check out a new SEC stadium. And with a group of guys, everyone can pitch in a few bucks. If we can hop on a bus in the morning, tailgate together on the way there on a bus, having drinks, hanging out, tailgate at the game, go to the game, and come back and sleep in our own bed. That's a pretty fun way to go spend a day or a weekend with some buddies, or go play golf for a long weekend. Or if you're a family that wants to go on a road trip to national parks, or you're a company that wants to take an executive event. I think there's a lot of uses for it. And with the size of our fleet now, and our fleet being around the country when there's breaks here and there, I think it's a market that a lot of people just don't know exists. And so I'd love for people to use it and try it out. Listen, it's not going to be, for us, I don't expect it to become like a massive part of our business, but I think it's one of the areas And I don't know if we'll get into sports or racing here, but, as we kind of grow and diversify into the business a little bit, like people knowing that what we have here is available to them, that it's possible for them to use it if they want to go on a month trip or over the holidays, they want to go do some stuff. Um, you know, everyone knows they can go rent an RV, right? But it's a lot. You rent an RV. If you can do this seamless service where you got a driver taking you to and where you want to from, you can sleep overnight, you can relax during the day and you can wake up and show up where you want to be to spend the day. I mean, that's pretty fun. I mean, I'll never forget the first couple of trips I took with my family in these buses. It's pretty cool to be able to take your family on a trip and, enjoy the afternoon, lunch, dinner, and then wake up at your destination where you want to go spend the day or the weekend.
Yeah, and just not think about it whatsoever. I think that's miraculous. And going to my next segment is looking ahead. What's the long-term vision of Dreamliner? You said sports and other parts of entertainment. Where is that going today with Dreamliner?
Great question. I think we'll continue to grow in coaches. We'll put 16 or 17, I think, new coaches in service this year. We'll build 16, 17 new coaches and put in service. There are other acquisitions that are out there, and there's not a lot of other sizable companies out there. But it's not to say we couldn't, add more folks that want to come be a part of this. Whether it's guys that have been doing it a long time that want to retire or want to roll into our business. I think the trucking side, there's a lot of opportunity for us still to expand that business. We're at 70 trucks today. I mean, I could easily see that doubling. I think the sports and racing aspects to me is a bit of a different dynamic. So, could we start doing more in sports, or whether it was kind of ESPN, NFL, PGA, hockey. I mean, there's a lot of other sports and things we can get into that I don't ever see those being like a significant part of our business. But, if we could put 5-10% of our business, or grow 10, 20 coaches into a new segment, that's good diversification for us. And as much as, when you're not utilizing the buses as much as the music industry, almost anything we do is a lot easier than music. Music touring is the most complicated, toughest part of the business. So the other stuff is nice to have a balance of that for the team.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, you're dealing with the hardest celebrities to work with sometimes, the highest needs of all time. But they say if you solve rich people problems, you get the biggest prize. So I'm sure you guys are doing that pretty well. Rich, you've been a wealth of knowledge on this pod. I appreciate it. I always like to end the pod with just a rapid fire questions. I might catch you off guard in a couple of this, but I'm going to throw some your way, okay?
All right, sounds good.
You bought a few companies thus far, but money is not an issue. What company are you buying today?
NetJets.
What is NetJets to the audience to know?
I mean, NetJets kind of the Uber for private planes, right? I think I look at that business. They've got thousands of planes and logistics all over the world for that matter. But just think US and comp it to us. They've got, trained professional pilots. They've got assets all over different airports, venues that have breakdowns they've got to solve. They got clients changing their itineraries all the time. So it's a lot of similarities to us in what we do. So it's funny saying buy NetJets, but like we could learn a lot from them on what they've done, how they've built their logistics platform. And we're trying to actually leverage them in some ways to kind of get even better with our, with the changes and adjustments and scheduling that we do. You asked the question.
No, I like that. Who's the best person in business you've ever interacted with and why?
Oh man. I've dealt with a lot of great people in business. I wouldn't say just one. I think that so many people I've interacted with from banks to a lot of great people at GE Capital, and just meeting with honestly a lot of those founders and stuff I mentioned. You meet a lot of people that you learn stuff from. So I always try to take people for for what I hear from them, what I could take from them, what they're good at, or what they seem to be good at, and help me grow in some form or fashion, whether it's that guy could sell anything to anyone, or that guy really has a really good risk spectrum, or wow, that guy's operation skills, try to take away little things here and there from different people along the way. But I've been very blessed and very fortunate to have met as many senior executives and, well-known people along the way that I've gotten to learn a lot.
What's the trade-off that high performers don't talk about enough?
Family and time at home. You can work as hard as you want. You can have as much balance and love your family as much as possible. But the guys that grind and work really hard, you got to sacrifice something, right? Whether it's whether you are at home and you're focused on thinking about something you were wanted to do before you left, or whether you're at work and you're not there. I got 3 fantastic kids and an amazing wife. And I do everything I can to try to be there to be the best husband and dad I can. But I could do better. I could be home more. I could shift my focus more. I could be there more. And I try to do that. But I also running a company. And it's just not as easy as, hey, turn it off and go focus. You can't run a company and go really turn everything off when you get home. So I try to do it for bits and pieces, and then I try to go back to work if I need to. But it's a balance that, here I am, 47 years old. So I'm getting there, hopefully hopefully before my kids are all grown and out of school, I'll be better at it.
Rich, your wealth of knowledge. I appreciate your time on the pod. Where can people find more about you and Dreamliner?
Dreamlinercoaches.com, or reach out anytime. I always enjoy having conversations. I appreciate your time today and doing this. But yeah, you can reach out to us online. We've got our Dreamliner Trucks website, our Dreamliner Coaches website. All the contact info's on there. Reach out. I'm available. My team's available. Happy to help anywhere we can.
Thanks, Rich. That's the pod.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it, Tim.